Hello there, and welcome to Sith Happens, the Star Wars podcast. I am Eric the Dadalorian, and thank you for joining us today on our episode 9. I am here with the guy who is the jar to my jar, the scruffiest of the nerf herders this side of Black Spire Outpost, and has a collection of far too many capes. His name is Matty Ice.
Hi, I'm Matty Ice, the man of too many capes. But the jar your jar is nice, but I think of myself as the mighty or knock. So
Yeah,
we'll go from
yeah, all
there.
right.
And
The
otherwise,
Your Jar
no.
was a good touch with Phantom Menace re-releasing this
Oh no,
week.
I know, I'm stoked to go. But I
Same.
also want to say, my standard plug. I'm also known as Black Series Daily Desk over on Instagram. Come check me out for any Sith Happens updates, as well as my photographs.
Absolutely. Go check him out as well as myself on Instagram at _Dadalorian_ as we shamelessly promote our asses. But anyways, brother, talk about a fucking day.
Whew.
One, we're on episode 9 of our podcast, and I feel like we just keep getting better and better with this shit, brother.
I agree, dude. I mean, I was joking with you earlier. I was like, this one's our Super Bowl because
This really is.
it's almost like, and guys, we're never going to stop, but this is almost like our mid-season finale because after this, we go into regular Star Wars stuff. But,
Yes.
this is like our last hurrah with the batch, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. And, we're going to talk. Eric and I had a tumultuous day with my review on first viewing early this morning, and then I revisited it this evening. And I had a little bit more to say, and I liked it a little better than I did the first time. So,
Yes.
gonna be great.
Yeah, man. So, like you said, we had the series finale of the Bad Batch today. Didn't disappoint me. Did leave me in a little bit of a puddle of my own tears, crying like my master left me to burn on the side of a volcanic river. But we're going to do a full episode breakdown of the 50-minute episode and also give an overall season review, kind of like what we thought of the whole thing as we are saying farewell to our favorite effective and defective clones. And then after that, we're going to get into our Collector's Corner segment with some real great vintage collectibles from us wrapping up together from there. So, all right. So anyways, and this is where we plug it in, guys. This is your spoiler warning.
I didn't have to remind you this time.
Nope. I forgot that one time.
It was 2 days ago. It's fine. It was a Monday night,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was struggling a little bit on that one. So
Yeah, all good.
anyways,
All right, get long-winded. I know this is a long script.
all right. So I'm gonna give you guys the full breakdown of the episode. It was a 15-minute episode, so bear with me. I'm gonna get through this as quick as we can. We got episode 15. The cavalry has arrived. The episode opens in a very dark tone, showing the Bad Batch logo on a dark lighting, giving us a very ominous forecast for this episode. Patrols are still searching for the Bad Batch in the forest, as we see Wrecker is pretty injured from his bear encounter, but isn't letting it slow him down. We cut to Tantus and find Rampart in prison, where he speaks with Dr. Hemlock, and even see an intense stare down between Nala Se and Rampart. We cut to Echo and Emery, where Emery reveals she is trying to do the right thing and brings Echo in disguise to the vault. Omega's plan began in the vault, where she is able to hack the medical droid and gets it to incapacitate Dr. Scalder, that bitch. Once out, the children are led by Omega to the escape route. The batch is still making way to Tantus when they realize that Wrecker is actually really injured and may not be able to do this. Emery gets Echo into the vault, where she name drops Project Necromancer to him. Omega gets the children to where the Zillow beast is held, and where she manages to free the monster, who begins to wreak havoc on his captors. Omega's escape is discovered by Dr. Hemlock and Scorch. It is here Echo realizes Omega is behind the Zillow escape. This is a long one, guys. I'm sorry. Crosshair plans to infiltrate the facility himself, while Wrecker and Hunter go to contact Rex, but this is cut short by the Zillow giving them an entry route as it breaks out of the facility. Omega leads the kids out through the Zillow's exit. Hemlock pulls out the operatives and activates 4 of them from their stasis chambers. The batch is engaged by the operatives and stormtroopers, where we see them get absolutely rocked and captured. Omega and the kids are saved by Echo and Emery. Emery is given safe coordinates for the children to be taken to before Omega and Echo go to save their brothers and complete the mission. Hemlock is torturing the Batch when he gets a transmission from Tarkin, while Echo and Omega break out the rest of the clones, where the clones were take up in arms to find Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair. Rampart crosses Nala Se and demands to be told about Necromancer trying to buy his way back into the Empire. Omega discovers the Batch and the clones engage the operatives. Nala Se is shot by Rampart, but not before she goes out like the bad mother she is by activating a thermal detonator, destroying them both and the lab, where they are unable to save any of that data. Excuse me, I gotta scroll.
How long did it take you to write this?
A long time.
2 hours later.
All right. Anyway, was I? Wrecker breaks free and is able to free his team as Hemlock grabs Omega to escape. Wrecker fights the operatives with Echo as Hunter and Crosshair go after Omega, but not before finally killing the operative that hunted them down initially. Wrecker and Echo continue to fight the operatives, with Wrecker in really bad shape. Hunter and Crosshair find Hemlock and Omega, killing Commando Scorch. A standoff ensues as Hemlock has Omega captive with a wristband, till Omega gives Crosshair his window and blasts the binders, and then blasts Hemlock to his death. The group escapes just as the first Imperial Star Destroyer we see on the Bad Batch arrives above Tantus. Tarkin is on the ground assessing when he shuts down the facility indefinitely, allocating all projects to Project Stardust. The clones appear back on Pabu. Emery agrees to go with Echo to Pantora to help Senator Chuchi and the other clones. As Echo leaves the Batch, now decides to go a different route than soldiering and do whatever they want with their future. From here, we go into a big jump. Our final shot opens to a very grown-up Omega and a very old and grisly-looking Hunter, as Omega goes to join the rebellion as a pilot, leaving Pabu and her brothers behind.
I feel like I just watched that episode a third time.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think it's important to break this down because, one, I think it helps us keep it refreshed in our minds so that, like, when we talk about it, but also for those of you guys who are watching this, maybe we say something you missed or something like that. So
No, yeah, it's awesome. And I mean, I took so many notes. So I think you and I talked about going off my notes, and they're long, so I'll skip some.
I'm not gonna lie, I needed a drink like a motherfucker after saying all that shit.
I was sweating for you, bro. Yeah. All right, so let's start. So I want to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Something everybody who watches the show, we have hypothesized on so many of our episodes discussing everybody not dying.
Yeah.
And I think this morning I did that first view and I told you I was really left wanting and like disappointed. I think some of it was the hype that I had. And this evening I watched it a second time, as I said before we taped, and I like it. I think it defied expectations. And I think additionally, they kept all trying to go die, right? Like, I'm going to take them, you run. You know, Crosshairs twice was like, you know, you guys get out of here and I'm going to hold them off. And there's too many. And then with the agents, you know, he did the same thing. And they wouldn't let each other die. They made each other come together. And I think that's where everything comes together in this. And I'll talk a little more at the end about after they kill Hemlock. But this really is a story about family and brothers. And it's, you know, echoed. You know, in the episode, you know, where they, where the clones, you know, they have a line where they go, they don't leave our brothers behind.
Yeah.
Like, we don't leave our brothers behind. It gave me the chills. And that's the point of the show. That's the point of how Crosshairs felt, you know, the first season. That's the point of how Crosshair felt, you know, the second season, kind of coming back to his brothers and them all kind of reuniting this season. The point of it is they're a family. They're brothers. There's a brotherhood of clones. Yes. And that's really what this was about. And that setup, even, you know, taking people to Rex, or clones, they're people, taking people to Rex. And maybe that starts, you're in my favorite theory, the Clone Rebellion.
I'm thinking we'll see something next, but I'm not sure what yet.
Well, you still got to know what happened to Echo. I was so happy for you that we didn't.
Yeah, that right there. I'm kind of holding on to some hope. So
all rebellions are started on hope, you know, but or built on hope. But and I think that was great. Because on that second viewing, it was way more satisfying because, you know, there was so much tension throughout about who would die, and they did a great job of keeping you on the edge of
Oh,
your
I was
seat.
stressing like a mother, dude.
Insanely, and I thought Wrecker was going to die like 12 times. Like I know
Yeah,
they keep
dude,
doing,
I thought
they
the
kept
same
doing that
thing.
this season. Yeah,
It's there was a lot of things. So like, I gotta say, it did not go the direction I thought it would go. Not even like a little, not even like a little bit. Like I was hoping for a happy ending, which is what it was, but I didn't think we would actually get
yeah.
that, especially given how Clone Wars ended. We kind of know how Clone Wars is going to end, but like Clone Wars was a heart jerker, and then this just didn't go the direction that I thought it was going to, but it did go in a way that I was on the edge of my seat as I watched every second of it, because there were so many moments through the episode that were just absolutely like clutching your seat,
Oh
heart
yeah.
like heart racing, and then on top of that, you just got them bringing in so many things with this. The giant scene with the Zillow Beast,
Oh,
breaking out 4 of those operatives, which we'll get into gripes with it.
I think we're gonna have the same gripe. I think we're
I
gonna have the
think
same
we
gripe.
are too.
Yeah.
So bringing in the 4 operatives, and that was a sick battle scene. Coming after that with the scene with Hemlock and Omega, and then Hunter and Crosshair on that bridge was one of the best scenes of the show, I think.
Oh
Then
yeah.
cutting into Tarkin coming back and everything. Like overall, the episode was fantastic, and I loved it though.
Well, yeah. When you get back to the bridge, right? Like with Hemlock and Omega, so cinematic, and we kept talking about that with this season.
Mm-hmm.
So cinematic, and it looked beautiful, and it pulled you in, and the
It
lightning and
was.
the rain and the silhouette. Yeah, it was awesome.
There were points it did not look like animation, like because it was so
Agreed.
dark that it looked like it could have been like a live action. Honestly,
No, 100% agreed. And I think the Zillow Beast was fantastic. I loved him breaking through the wall and getting into the jungle, or her, whichever the Zillow Beast is, the them
yeah,
of the Zillow Beast.
yeah,
It was fantastic the way they released the Zillow Beast. Echo kind of going, Omega did it because that's what I would do. Was
yep.
so good, really like just captured it so well, like who she's grown into,
He just kind of was
right?
like, "Yep, that's a Clone Force 99 right there."
100%. Plan 1006. And if you ever run into a Zillow Beast, they're prepared. But then, even with her telling the kids, like, I can do this, I know what I'm doing. We've been talking about that arc, and it really came to fruition like 2 episodes ago, or even like 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
But now she is a soldier, which is a
Yes.
great way they tie it up at the end, and they've made her this soldier. And
Yes,
I
they
loved
have.
it. And it's, there was like chills inducing scenes with that. I think the stuff with the other kids that were captured. One little gripe that I have is, and like the kids had to escape. It's a kid show. It
Yeah,
felt like they tidied that up a little bit versus carrying that a little more into the final conflict.
yeah.
Like it was just like, all right, well, we solved it. It's like a side mission on the video game. All right, we got him out. But then when we talk about her and Echo going back in right after that, it's redeemed by a really strong moment.
That was great, honestly.
Yeah, and it was awesome, and I think the fighting was really good in it. We've talked about the better fighting, the worst fighting in the show. I think the battle in the hangar was a little rushed.
I
Where they got
agree. I
captured.
think
Yeah,
that got a little bit rushed in there too. It was really cool the way it started, and I thought it was going to turn into something big, and it was just like, oh, it's
that's it.
over.
Yeah, I think it got a little rushed. I think they could have let that play out a little more. It was, if we're getting into a gripe, I think they should have brought those agents in an earlier episode. I think they were invented, like they were presented and invented as these cool characters to come in at the end, but they're the counter to the Bad Batch, and they are a looming presence. And that looming presence, covered of a 50-minute episode, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and they were so
Yeah.
strong and badass. But you could have had them take the Bad Batch out a little bit earlier in the season, and brought them a
Yeah.
little bit more in, so that when they do show up here, it's not just done with the coolness of them awakening. It's
Mhm.
done with like, okay, they're going head to head, and then giving the Batch a little more of a chance to really counter them. Like they've gotten better, they've learned their moves.
Yeah.
That to me was probably the biggest missed opportunity of the episode. Because don't get me wrong, those guys were badass, especially the
Yeah.
knife guy with those 2 yellow knives. Like he was sick.
That was dope.
But
That was dope.
but you needed a little more of them. You needed to feel a little more like you were against them instead
Yeah,
of them just being like a cool.
there wasn't
boss
like a
level.
real emotion behind it, so to say. Like it was dope, but like there really wasn't emotion of like all of these operatives had been introduced. It was like, oh, this is cool, but
And it took
I know
away.
I know my biggest gripe with that is I really wanted to see who was under the helmets, because it might have just been some no-name clone. Could have been Cody. Could have been,
Yeah.
like some of these other guys, and it's just like I want to know who it is.
Yeah, and I think I was okay with them not revealing X2 and who it was. What I thought was a little rough was introducing those characters kind of sucked a little bit of his story out. And
Mm-hmm.
even the way he died, it felt a little bit like a vaudeville act where like they yank somebody off with a cane. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's sneaking up, like it was almost like you've built this character into this real badass character, and they kick their asses, right? In the hangar, but then just kind of get the spear and they get the jump on him. Like there could have been a little more tension. He could have fought them a little more. He and Crosshair have a little bit of a tete-a-tete that's always happened. Like you get
Mm-hmm.
Crosshair a little bit more in there. But I also respect the speed they did it. They didn't linger on anything. Like there's good and bad in that. But I do think X2 could have gotten a little bit more of his due to rhyme with that final battle. But at the same time, brutal and fast. And, the fight that Echo and Wrecker were having on the ground. And also amazing, clone training room. Right? Like you got that again.
Yeah.
And that brings back some of the stuff from season 1. That brings back stuff from Clone Wars. Like that training room was an obstacle course. And they used that really well when the clones were fighting. And they had some real great moments with it. So I thought that was really, really cool. And it felt like they really took this show's always been a little bit of an epilogue to the Clone Wars. And I think they did a very good job of wrapping that up in the episode,
So
bringing back some specific things.
something that training room reminded me of actually too, just because of now we're in that Imperial era, is the kind of like the training room in the Inquisitors facility
Yes.
on Nur. So like
Yes.
if you play Jedi Fallen Order, you guys will know what I'm talking about. There's a level there where it's like moving floors and everything, and you're playing as Cal Kestis fighting off against Purge troopers and stormtroopers and stuff. So that's really what came to mind for me, and that was like a big, that I thought it was really, really cool. And I was like, man, I wonder if are we gonna see a Purge trooper pop out or something like that?
Yeah, no, and I
So
think what I love was the red, because that really echoes that training room in
yeah,
Fallen Order. And also, they brought that room back, the torture room in Obi-Wan, that Imperial
yes,
element we keep talking about, that it gets more Imperial, and then seeing the Star Destroyers, because they've been using Venators until now, right?
yep,
So, like, this is it. Like, they're building the Empire, Also, Stardust getting mentioned by Tarkin.
yes,
Like, this is it. They've phased out the clones. They're getting rid of the stuff that they had during the Clone Wars. The Empire is being built. It's been like, I think, 3 or 4 years since Order 66 and what happened in Revenge of the Sith. And now here we are, full Empire. It's about to pop off. And I think the show set some stuff up that now, if there's another animated series, maybe it's about the Clone Rebellion. Maybe that's a part of it. Maybe it's, something a little different with Asajj. Like, I feel like they kind of could go in a direction that's a little bit more of like a one-person story. It'd be a nice
yeah,
change for the cartoons. But either way, whatever you're going to get, if it's in this time period, we are in the dark times. This is the
yes.
beginning of the dark times. It started at the beginning of the batch, and it just has ramped up. And now here we are, full oppressive bureaucracy, the whole deal.
I think the thing that really stuck the most at the end there was seeing that first Star Destroyer pop in,
Yeah.
where we've been seeing Venator still, because it's like they're still phasing out the clones and everything like that. So, and probably right about the time that we're at right now in the Bad Batch is also probably right about that same time frame or close to of where Fallen Order is, where they're breaking down Venators and building
Yeah.
up destroyers and everything.
Yeah.
So that was a big, really cool piece. I thought that there's just a oppressive visual that you get from a Star Destroyer. Like it just has that presence about it when it comes to cinematography in Star Wars.
And the way they introduced him too, with the ship going into lightspeed, the Batchy ship, and then as it goes through, they pop in, which is a great call to Rogue One, because they popped in and ship started hitting them, right, which was really cool. But this was like such a narrow move that it added that, it like was a nice intense thing to close what you felt like was a wrapped story. And it was almost like, all right, the batch is gone, they're safe, here comes the Empire. The Empire's in full swing now, right? And that's, to me, it just felt like it was right. Like it was this story's trajectory in a dark season of a show that I think is probably the best animated season I've ever seen. In this really kind of like dark season, they're closing out with some hope, but right before they're giving you that hope, they're getting out of there. They're just reminding you this is a small story about certain people. They're getting away, but now is coming something that's going to be about 19 years or maybe 14 based on what we're talking about of this full empire. So
I
there's
think
this
I think
looming
it's like in
shadow.
I think the empire overall spanned about 30 years from beginning to its
Right.
collapse or something like
Yeah,
that, or just about. Um, so I mean, yeah, it's 30 years of the heaviest oppression they will see in that galaxy.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the First Order held it for like 18 months, but yeah, it's, like it's the heaviest. They got it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well,
it's
so and bringing that up actually, that is something that is cool. I was hoping to talk about too. So I'm not big on the sequel era. I enjoyed Force Awakens, but that's really about as deep as I dive into the sequel area. I wasn't a big fan of the other two. But one of the things within the sequel era, I'm not sure if it's canon or Legends. I'll start with that. Is that Kylo Ren actually kills a Zillow beast, and I'm pretty sure it's on Tantus. So I think they dropped that, having that Zillow on
you're right.
Tantus.
You're right. That's the
It
Zillow.
kind
You're
of
right. You're
it
right. You're
kind of
right.
lines that up. Like, I don't know if maybe they're like trying to like figure some stuff out with like making more towards the sequel era stuff, but like I thought it was cool the Zillow escaped on Tantus where supposedly Kylo kills this thing. And I don't know, maybe we'll see more about it down the road, maybe we won't, but I thought it was at least a nice little Easter egg for that, if anything.
No, it's great. And I think Necromancer is what they're doing to set that up. And when you get into the comics, especially the Darth Vader comic, he discovers Exegol, right? Like
Yes.
the Emperor shows him and they explain that Exegol is built on Kyber. And they've spent, 30, 40 years torturing Kyber to make those mini Death Star guns on the Star Destroyers at the end of
Mm,
Rise of Skywalker. So they're doing a lot with the new canon, which we talked about new canon last episode. They're doing a lot to fill in those blanks that I
yeah.
really like. The one thing that is just getting drawn out, and I'm starting to be like, okay, is Necromancer. Like,
Hmm.
how many times during this episode where they're like, I'll tell you what it is, and they cut to a cool battle, and it's like, just tell me what it is at this point. We all kind of know what it is.
Most
But
of us
just
know.
yeah, but spell it out. Just let us let's not play this. Like, let's stop being coy. Star Wars. Just Necromancer is the project for the Emperor to build clones so that the Emperor can become a clone, and he needs these kids because he needs their M count so he can stay stable in a clone. He never gets that, and that's why he looks how he does in Rise of Skywalker. I just did it for the world, and hopefully I'm right. I would be very surprised if I wasn't right. I welcome not being right, but just stop. That's what that is. Let's
I
put it to
know it's
bed.
there in the books and shit somewhere, and I think you're pretty much right about there, if not right on the money. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I think we can all agree on that part.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, but yeah, honestly, the episode overall was great. I think maybe just highlight some of our favorite. Maybe now we should just highlight some of our favorite parts of this episode, and then we go into like an overall season type of thing. So,
I agree. Yeah.
or better yet, do some of our for this episode, just do some like maybe like our top three favorite parts, and then
Yep.
maybe like how what we would change out of it. So you can go ahead and shoot it away, brother.
All right, top three. I think number one, I got a little choked up. There was a little crying that Omega hugged Crosshair first because we all thought his arc was this. I was a bad guy and now I'm going to sacrifice. But what his arc really was is what he said at the end of the first season. You guys left me behind, and he wanted a family. He wanted his brothers, and he built this thing with Omega that she went up and hugged him first. He shot the manacles. He saved her, right? And then now that's it. It's full circle. He's back. He started out, in Clone Wars. He's the gruff one. He's the badass. Then he was the bad guy. He said that he took his chip out. He stayed the bad guy because they left him behind, and he wanted his brothers. And it's that brotherhood theme I said about the whole season and the
Mm-hmm.
series, in essence. And that moment for me was beautiful because you would expect her to go to Hunter, but she and Crosshair had this bond from being in prison, and her
Yeah.
freeing him in more ways than one in the way that he wanted. That was my number one. I think my number two was the end. I think Hunter saying to her, I wrote it down, "You're our kid, Omega. You always will be." That's the point. They're her brothers, but she's their kid. And she's
Yeah.
now going off onto her own adventure. It's the next chapter, and they can't follow her, but
Yeah.
they'll always be there. And then my third favorite was the Zillow Beast.
Yeah.
When he busted through that wall when they were at the bottom of the mountain you were like, holy shit. And then seeing the destruction he caused was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So, what about anything you would change?
I mean, I think I said the agents needed to come in a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
I didn't love how they took out X2. I thought it was unceremonious. It was very unceremoniously. And I think Scorch didn't get his due. He's built as the right hand man bad guy, and then he goes and he got
yeah,
punked so bad. It was like just and I was just like,
yeah.
that guy.
He got
He's
lit
the
up
leader of
hard.
the Commandos. Like,
I had hoped for a lot more out of him, especially being like a Republic Commando game fan. Like I was like damn, dude. So like, but we'll get into that at a
yeah,
later point. So
he was the longest Easter egg of all time.
he really
Like
was the
just
longest
yeah, just
fucking
oh, there's
Easter egg of
Scorch.
all
Oh,
time.
there's Scorch. Oh, there's Scorch. He's the leader of the bad guys. There's Scorch. And then it's like, hey, Scorch. And it's like
Yeah,
that was my thing with X2 and him. I think that took a little out of the episode for me because if they had a big moment when both of those guys died, it would have been for me like amazing. And then one thing I did like that I wanted to bring up because we didn't get to it,
mhm.
Rampart and Nalise dying. That's full circle. He destroyed her city. This was the last of the records of Camino. She was always like an unwilling participant in Project
Yeah,
Necromancer, and in this moment, she got all of her redemption. She wiped the slate clean for the Batch in Omega, and she got her due and got to take out really the cause of like syncing her up with Hemlock, the guy who really was the cause of her pain. He's the guy that wiped out Camino. So it was a
yeah.
great. We were wondering how he was going to die. It couldn't have been written better the way they took him out.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. And honestly, dude, this actually gonna kind of suck for me because you actually took pretty much most of my shit that I was gonna say because those were some of the pretty much most impactful moments of the episode. I would say some of my favorite things because some of my favorite things in Star Wars are when they tie into the other things. So I know one of the scenes that sticks with me the most, and we've already talked about it a lot, the Star Destroyer coming in right as the batch exits. That I thought was beautiful. Loved it. I thought it was a very opening to the dark times, so to
Yep.
say. And that's a really rich story time within Star Wars, Kenobi, Fallen Order, Survivor. So a lot of cool stuff within that era. The second thing, I'm kind of listing things that are more like my 4, 5, and 6 because you took my 3 actually.
Listen, we're good friends. It's gonna happen. Yeah.
Great minds, right? But my next one that I would pick would actually be the Project Stardust drop. I really love how they kind of just put that in there. For those of you who might be like the casual Star Wars fans or maybe just getting into this, Project Stardust is a certain something that's in the sky that blows up other planets, i.e., Death Star. If you are interested, look it up. Watch Rogue One, and you'll kind of figure it out from there. So yeah, that I loved as well. I love that kind of tie in with that, and then I like where Echo is going. I think there's gonna be more with Echo and Rex. We've talked about that ourselves offline, and I do think what we are seeing right now, they're hopefully, fingers crossed, man. I'm hoping we see some more clone action with Rex and Echo leading a rebellion or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm here for
We
it.
know it's
And
doomed, but I'm hoping for it.
you know what I'm surprised wasn't in your favorite things because it's probably my number 4. Hunter's senses. He anticipated that shot from X2, and the blaster bolt didn't hit him. And then at the end, when he was waiting there when the lights came on, which was beautiful, when she was
Mhm.
going to leave the Pabu, he says, I'm not so old that my senses aren't there anymore.
Yeah,
And
that
again,
that part is actually kind of like my honorable mention. That scene with
yeah,
him and her at the end.
yeah.
So,
And you needed
um,
that because in a season where, Crosshair and her kind of took that relationship, he's still the big brother and the dad. And I thought that
yeah,
was great. And he's who you needed to see send her off.
yeah, I thought that score at the end too was a very uplifting, beautiful, beautiful score. So,
Full chills. The score in this
yes.
this episode was, I know you're a score guy and I'm a score guy. The score in this episode, like I'll listen to that on online quite a bit.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely. I would say the gripe I had with this, and I got 2 of them, and I think the one is the one we agree on with Scorch. He just, dude, like he went out like a bitch.
I couldn't believe it. Like I said this morning, I didn't like it, the episode. And then when I watched it tonight and I wasn't tired, my wife and I rewatched it this morning. We were like, this is actually really good. And it felt like I was watching it for the first time, and I knew we were getting to that
Yeah.
part. And I was like,
Like, oh, this part still sucked. But yeah, I mean, it's like I think it just kind of sucked. I would have liked to have seen a little more out of it. Like him put up a little bit more of a fight and stuff. Honestly, but fingers crossed for a Black Series of Scorch in the Bad Batch line. So
I mean, I have the Gaming Greats one. It's on my shelf back there in the back.
I have the Gaming Great ones too, but I like kind of like an overall collection of it. So
I want them in the changed armor from these last two episodes, because I think there's a message in that too at the end when they're sitting there. Is that like they don't have their Clone Wars colors, they don't have their Marauder colors, and that was them going in. They're fresh. This armor's not painted anymore. They're new, and they don't have to wear it.
Yeah. So, but the other one I would kind of gripe about is the one we've already talked about, which was just the operatives not getting a reveal on their identities, because it's one of those things where Cody was left blank for us, and I do think he was one of those guys. Now that we have like nothing on what happened to him, I do think there's a high probability he was one of those guys, but it's going to leave me pissed off that I don't know for the rest of my life now.
But you will know, because I think that you're talking about a Rex and Echo series and their relationship with Cody. Who knows? We don't know where he went. Maybe there's more clone facilities they need to save. And if they do that in a show or they touch on that, like, I don't think Cody's story is fully over. But I will say, if it is, I like the way that he's sort of this remnant of the Clone Wars and he's just taken care of, which is kind of like dark and mysterious. But I do think we'll find out what happened to him. I think in old canon, he became like an Imperial Moth or something.
Yeah.
I think he dies with Panaka on Naboo in old canon. And that's the explosion that messes up Saw Gerrera. That's like, whatever, that's Legends. But I think that's the case there.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I wasn't even tracking on that. So, but yeah, so overall, man, the season, one of the greatest seasons of Star Wars animation I've ever seen. Hands down.
And it was dark and it was good, and it's for kids, and there were moments that I felt were heavy for kids, but I think the way they ended it, like you always say, Star Wars is for kids, and they ended it in a way that kids will love it, and they ended in a way that adults were mostly satisfied. I think my gripes were so long this morning, and now I've got like 3 gripes, and most of it, is related to like what you said. But I think that, to me, we're good.
I think that second watch helped you a lot, because I think we both went into it just expecting something completely different than what actually happened. So we were like, oh man. But I mean, I really enjoyed it still.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole season, the season as a whole, was just some of the crispest, I don't know if that's a word, animation, crispy, animation that we've ever seen in Star Wars. We saw a lot of characters come back, and it was a just full on like dash to the finish, so to say, with it, because there was not one episode that really had like like just something that wasn't even remotely related to the overall end arc of this. So.
Agreed. It was a great trajectory. We've talked about that, and I think satisfying conclusion. And I think, like I've been saying, I'm sad it's the last season, but they took the story to where it needed to go, and there doesn't need to be more. There's more story to tell, but these guys deserve that rest.
Yeah. So, but anyways, man, I think that is where, we bid farewell to the batch
on the cast as well.
Yes, the one guy. So, but man, it was great. Loved it. But now we get to move on to some new animation coming out next week. But we'll get into that here in a little bit, because I know we got some great collectibles to show off, man.
Yeah,
right?
We do. We got to give our ratings on the batch. Don't get so hasty. What's your rating?
Oh shit! That's right. We didn't. So So how do you want to do it? You want to do episode or episode and overall, or?
We've gushed enough about the episode. Full season. Let's do it.
So full season. Now I'm going to be comparing this to all Star Wars animation, just in general, not just Bad Batch. I'm going to give Bad Batch season 3 a 9 rating.
With you, 100%. I think it's you got to look at it in context. So like to me, Rebels, no, not your favorite. To me, the way they tied that up was beautiful. That to me is like a 9.5. Clone Wars, if they could go higher than 10, 20 million. This, I think a 9 is nice in and out of context.
Yeah, it was. It had so much great stuff in it. I loved it. I can't really complain. Like even some of the stuff we were like, I was like, it's not even a big deal.
Yeah,
So,
if you look at the whole series, I think it brings the whole series up to an 8. A series
yeah.
that might have been a 7. Like the season really pulled like 2 points of weight.
I know season 2 is one I was like a little on. There was just I wasn't a huge fan of the season 2. There was great moments with the season itself. I would have probably put that at like a 6.5 or a 7.
Yeah,
This was a hell of a lot different.
The problem with season 2 is when it was great, it was great, and when it was not great, it was not bad. But you were like, all right, waiting for the next episode.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
all right.
But yeah. Anyways, we bid farewell to our boys in red and black, and good soldiers follow orders.
And as Omega said, we completed the mission.
So,
all right.
Now I know you are very excited for our collector's corner, right?
Yeah, you go first. Mine's good.
Okay. All right. Stand by, because I got to grab mine.
Oh, you weren't even ready?
A few moments later.
A little bit more prepared, but
yeah, drama.
Had to go put these kids to bed, and that kind of put it behind me. So now this is not going to be the one that you thought I was going to do. I actually kind of had like a last minute change on this, and this is a little bit of a drop, a sort of a ode to in regards to Phantom Menace.
Oh, gee, does it still make noise?
This is the OG Battle Droid Blaster from '99, and
yes,
yeah, these things are like the condition it's in. I got it, and it wasn't in like fantastic shape. It was pretty good for given like how old it was. But I got this thing, I cleaned it up. I redid some of the connectors and stuff on the inside for where the battery is. It was a little bit like acid leak in there, but nothing too crazy. Cleaned it up, and yeah, man, still rocking solid. So
yeah, I love that blaster. You know what's funny? I've got like the Phantom Menace visual guide like before the movie came out, and they noted that blaster is heavier than other blasters because in like the visual, story guide, because droids pick it up. And then in the movie, everybody was just like, "Oh," and they were holding it like you did. And I was like, wait a minute, which again, old canon, like I said, doesn't always line up. But that is
fucking Padme's holding it like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, exactly. One-handed in the clone Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for mine?
I'm ready. Let's see it.
So mine goes to the preamble, as always. So there was a store called Starlog back in the day, which was almost like the Hot Topic for nerds. And they started getting vintage Star Wars toys in. And this figure was $40 at the time. I was like 9. And it's an original figure on the card, so just spoiler alert. And I saved my allowance to get it for $40, and then I didn't want to open it, but it's my favorite character in his costume. So I used to keep it in a drawer in my dad's room and periodically just go in and look at it. And recently I had to get all my stuff out of my dad's house, and I got it. So without further ado, a 1983 Return of the Jedi Han Solo in Bespin on card with the original tag from Toys R Us, 97 cents. And a real bragging point, the stock hole at the top is still in. This is a little yellowed, which is not great.
Unpunched.
Yeah, unpunched. This is a little yellow here. I get it. But I'll probably never open it until it falls apart. I'm going to get it better. Keep it in like a comic bag. I got to get it in like a real, plastic holder. But this is probably the king of my collection. And Han Solo in his Bespin look is my favorite Han Solo. So really straight up there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Back of the card, legendary back of the card. This is.
Yes.
I told you I had something good, and I didn't want to disappoint you. So
that's good.
Pretty good shock and awe, right?
That's good. You got to reach out to our boy Mark, and I know he can tell you where to get a good protector for that thing.
Yeah.
So
I was almost going to get it graded, but I'm so scared it'll get messed up in transit. So I will talk to our good friend Mark. He's actually how Eric and I know each other. He's a guy who's just a credit to the collectors and fan community, and he's the man that. Yeah, never seen a person that owns more Star Wars stuff in my life. He's got like a warehouse he stores it in, and it's beautiful.
I tell most people we consider him the godfather of the Star Wars collectors community.
Everybody's big brother in the best way possible. Shout out to Mr. Mark Wallace.
I love you. But yeah, that's dope though, man. I don't think I have any. I don't have anything quite that old. I think the oldest item I have in my collection, it's actually another blaster, which I'll show at a later time. But that's dope. Like those old vintage ones like that. I regret not keeping those from when I was younger because I did have some of those.
Yeah, they did a line of the figures right around when Force Awakens came out, and they were 5 POA, points of articulation.
Hmm.
And I was collecting them originally instead of Black Series because I liked the feeling of that mirroring to the Power of the Force second line that came out in the 90s. Like a
Yeah.
Star Wars toy should just have legs that go up and down, arms that go up and down, and a neck that turns. And then I got my first Black Series figure, and it was all over. But there's something about that that's special to me. Those are the toys that I snagged from people's older brothers when I was a kid,
Yep.
and there's something about that articulation that really speaks to me.
No, hey, listen, you collect what you want to collect, That's one thing we've always agreed on, We'll never bash you for what you want. If you're an out of box collector, inbox, or if you want to just custom, whatever the hell it is, man. So,
Yep,
but
Star Wars is for everyone, and so is collecting.
for sure. And I'll tell you what, we both had some really dope things to show off today.
I know, right? It was May the 4th cast and the finale
I
of Bad
know.
Batch. Bring the thunder. It's our Super Bowl.
Dude, this is a good episode. And to kind of like finish this bad boy off today, right? So we got something big coming up for May 4th. For those of you who might not be tracking, if you saw Tales of the Jedi last year, which by the way, one of the best short series ever,
Amazing.
we have Tales of the Empire releasing on May 4th this year. I think it's going to be another 6-episode series.
Yep.
And in this, it's going to focus on Morgan Elsbeth's story from Night Sister to Imperial and Barriss Offee being indoctrinated into the Inquisitors. So I think maybe just like my expectations for this. So I loved Morgan Elsbeth's character. I thought that was such a cool and interesting character. I love stuff with the Dathomiri and the Night Sisters, and
Agreed.
I really thought that her arc in Ahsoka was great. So I'm very very excited to see the foundation of that character and how she became who she did. Plus, I love the stuff with Grievous. Can't wait to see that.
100%.
But that's going to be great. And the stuff with Barriss was something I did not expect when I kind of like heard when I heard or saw like this trailer come out. I was like, why is she with the Inquisitors? I was like, what the hell? Because for as far as we know, she never became an Inquisitor, but
yeah.
she could have been one of those masked ones that we just didn't know about, something like that. So this is going to show us a side of the Inquisitors we've yet to see, with the way that they indoctrinate the Force sensitives to hunting Jedi with them and everything. So
Yeah.
it's going to be good.
And that's a story that needed to be told. We were all waiting. And I think everybody always speculated. Marok in the original trailer, they were like, is that Barriss in armor? And like, I feel like definitely Filoni, everybody was like, oh, you wait. We're going to finish that story. And it's really cool because it bucks that speculation. I think I'm more excited. I thought I'd be more excited for Barriss. I'm more excited for Morgan because when they revealed she was a Night Sister in Ahsoka, you were like, holy shit, I can't believe this. And they really tied the Night Sisters in, and it was so great. But there's a degree of sadness to her, especially towards the end of that season when she dies. That like it's like this kind of like she's she's an acolyte of them, and she's somebody who really cares. And you I think didn't quite when she was first introduced, she was cool. The beginning of that season, she was cool. It created this depth to the character that needed to be explored more. And like my first question was she there at the Siege of Dathomir? Was she there when they the genocide and all that? Like maybe like she mentioned stuff like that. But obviously they're filling in some gaps here.
Yeah.
Where during that battle, and the battle cuts away a lot. She could have fought Grievous. We don't know. Well, we do know because we saw the trailer. But the element of now filling that story in, and I was a little bummed when she died. I wanted to know a little more about her, and I think they did that.
Listen, that's a character death that it didn't like emotionally affect me, but I think there was so much more they could have done with that character.
Agreed.
End of that season of Ahsoka where they turned her, they gave her the gift of shadow, so to say, and the blade of Talzin. I was like, this is a badass character. Like, I want to see more of this character.
100%. Yeah, it was awesome. And I think it's going to be fun to talk about next week for you and I. Definitely.
And I think that would have been kind of an interesting thing for an Ahsoka season 2, personally, I think. But that's, coulda, shoulda, woulda at this
We're getting
point.
to
So
Mortis, man. Just let the Mortis thing sink in, and we'll go from
yes,
there. Tying up that
and
arc.
we will have an episode dedicated to that because that is that might be another 2 for episode, honestly.
You're just talking about those 3 episodes or 4 episodes, 100%.
Yeah, no doubt. So, but yeah, super excited for Tales of the Empire this week. We're gonna come back next week. We'll have plenty to talk about with that. We're gonna talk about our May the 4th, kind of how that went for us. I know you're planning a big party, right?
Oh yeah, like 12 people in an apartment that fits 8.
Hell
Definitely fun.
yeah. Yeah,
Nice
no,
11-hour marathon.
I know the big thing I'm doing. Me and my buddy, we took off Friday to go see Phantom re-release, so that's going to be the big one. And then we're taking our kids out to a couple Star Wars Day events, so I'm pretty
Nice.
excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
but I think that does it for us tonight, Matt.
Debunk.
I know we. Well, I was gonna say let's get to our debunk.
No, I'm proud. I did it in 2 days. Sometimes we're like, oh, we didn't get to it. So last episode, we taped a couple days ago. I said that with the Zillow Beast Metamorphosis episode from last season.
Oh,
I remember saying, oh my god, when that came out that night, there was something that happened in Mando season 3 that was big. So I wanted to go back and look. And you know what it was? It was the premiere of Mando season 3.
Oh, no shit!
So that's why I was like, what a great night for Star Wars, and that's and that was.
So what episode number was that for Metamorphosis?
I think it's like 9.
So it so Mando premiered in like the middle of like Bad Batch. I didn't realize that.
Bad Batch was out in like February and Mando was out in March, so maybe it was like episode 5 or 6. I don't think of that. I got to go look, but it was the date. It was March 1st, and I kind of was like, oh, was that the premiere? And I remember there's one of my buddies who lived around the corner from me. We went there every Wednesday to watch Batch at night, and then when Mando came out, it was like this great double feature thing that happened for a little while through Mando. Yeah. It was really cool.
I didn't even realize that it came. I completely forgot it came out like that. So, but no, it's good debunk and really awesome. I don't know. Maybe Mando ties in at some point with this shit. Then, that's just me hoping because that's I love the Mandalorian stuff. But
Dadalorian, get out of here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But anyways, for those of you guys who have joined us today. Who have been watching us and listening to us as we go through all these reviews and everything with Bad Batch. We want to thank you for joining us and listening to us. So you guys can follow us on Instagram at SithHappens_Star Wars Podcast, on YouTube and Spotify at SithHappens- a Star Wars Podcast. Appreciate you guys following us and encourage you to get on all of our platforms. And starting here soon, we are going to be getting away from reviews because we kind of have a little bit more breath. We have a little bit more freedom to do stuff now that that Bad Batch has ended. We got a little bit of time before Acolyte starts. So we actually would like some ideas from you guys on maybe some things from canon, legends, books, games. We want you guys to tell us what you want us to basically go over and talk about. We'd love to hear your ideas. And if we decide to go over one of your ideas, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast.
Absolutely. And maybe someday we'll give ideas prizes. We've got prizes and guests coming up in the coming months. So get ready. We got some big ones maybe.
Yes, we do. We actually got kind of some cool stuff, and I think I could say this one at this point. We just confirmed Dimitri Karas, I believe his name was, and Ardashir, who are both stunt actors from the Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and Mandalorian series. These are guys who they play under the helmet, so to say, so you probably won't recognize their faces too much. But they're two really cool guys. I've spoken with both of them so far, and they're really awesome. We're excited to get them on the show. They're probably going to come in around the July timeframe. But very excited to do that. And we also are going to be giving away some of their signed action figures and stuff. So more to come on that.
Yeah.
But Matty, my boy, I think that wraps us up for today since we're hitting the 50-minute mark, much like our Bad Batch episode.
we knew it was going to be a long one.
We did. So anyways, man, sign us off. Hit us with that Instagram tag and sign us off, man.
All right. I am Black Series Daily Desk, and I just want to let everybody know, like Eric said, we thank you for listening to us. It's a community. We're happy to be a part of it, and we're happy to have you in our community on the cast. And with that, may the Force be with you always.
And I am the Dadalorian. You can find me on Instagram at @the_Dadalorian_. And this is the way.